Welcome everyone. We're here at Nasan Tur'un's exhibition at Dirimart Dolapdere'de, Splinter In My Eye. It's the artist's first solo show with the gallery, and it's actually the first show that he has since 2011 in Istanbul. You were part of some group shows, but it's been a while that we haven't seen a solo show of yours here in Turkey. And since there has been like this pause, so to say, we're going to cover like different works of Nasan in reference to this exhibition, and also talk larger about his practice as opposed to like limited, like restricted view, just like limited to the exhibition. Nasan, actually, one of the first things that strikes me about your practice is that you conveniently switch between different media, and so you're doing performances, producing video, drawings, sculptures, installations, or doing like interventions. So I'd actually like to begin with how you kind of like own this set of skills and like develop different tools. So maybe we can start with like how you begin your practice actually.
My practice is very conceptual.
Yes.
But it's always also very difficult because in a way regarding the medias, because I always have to, I mean, sometimes I have an idea and it needs this kind of medium. I never worked with that before, let's say to pour with bronze or to work with film or whatever, and I have to dig into it. But actually it's only a tool for me for presenting the works in the best way I'm thinking about that. So I'm not really fixed with media. I'm not so interested in specific media as painting or performance. So they're just, yeah, as I said, kind of tools which I'm using.
And could you tell us what you studied actually?
I studied, I mean, it was called, I studied in two schools. One was more based, called visual communication, but with free art, they called it at that time.
Liberal
now it changed
art.
Somehow, yes. And then after that, I studied in a classic academy at Städel's Schule. In
So
Frankfurt.
you're already not like, even when you started, it wasn't like with the classical academia training, like artistic training, like you were already like switching between different things, coming from your education.
Yes, I mean, like also my teachers at that time, one of them was Ayşe Erdem. I mean, she's very conceptual based. The other one is Louis Baltz, an American photographer, actually, which is also working very, very conceptual. He's not living anymore, unfortunately, but he influenced me also very much. But also I came to art without any knowledge before. So I mean, like I just like has been in the art academy then from one moment to the other, and I just made artworks. I didn't thought about history, art history, or other artworks. I was just doing the things I was thinking it's interesting, and I mean, like it's still something where I think also that the positioning of myself inside the society plays a much bigger role than, let's say, my art by itself, as a piece by itself.
Actually, like as we started with your earlier practice in the school, I'd like to draw some attention to your early performances, and like my first encounter with Nasan Tur'un was actually in 2007 when Hohanru invited him for the Istanbul Biennial, and that was already somehow like already you were not in the beginning, like you were like kind of going further in your work, but we invited him with his work Backpacks, where the audience could borrow the backpacks they choose, and they could go out on the street for half an hour and like perform what the back was designed for. Like could be like protesting, could be making music, could be cooking, And I know that your performances were also related so much to the street and taking the language of the street. Can we briefly talk about your earlier performance work?
I mean, the early performances were also performances which are not like classical performance. I didn't have an audience. I was just interested in to go to public, which is also, let's say, not a safe place. It's here we're safe. We have like this gallery which is protecting us, or the museum, or the biennial. There I was interested in more just to make interactions or actions inside of the public space where the normal, let's say, life is going on, and to disturb it somehow, to be different inside of this normal circumstances. And one work was, for example, that I made just somersaultings. I mean, like rollings inside of different cities of the world. So you were always seeing like a scene of a city, quite normal, nothing special, and the people were like walking over there, and then then you saw somebody who's also moving, but in a different way. It was like making like these rolls, and nobody knew what the hell is that guy is doing. Why is he rolling? And so I had a kind of a roster of different videos. I've done it in Mexico City, I've done it in Tokyo, I've done it in Frankfurt, I've done it in Istanbul, and in Paris. And it was kind of to create a kind of a fairy tale I was interested in, that there is somebody who's actually not doing anything else than the others, just in another way. And that created already something which is quite demanding for the people. So it was interesting. For example, when I've done it in Istanbul, then the security guards took me just because I was rolling. I mean, it's not, you can't see that in the videos, but it's interesting from the point of the production and the making of. And they thought really it's a political action, because there are people who are like just sitting on the seat for 3 days and nothing doing as a political action, or as we had at Gezi Park, just standing, or they're doing some other things. So why this is not a political action? And when I've done it in Tokyo, it was quite difficult to convince like the assistants to come with me, because they were so afraid to just do something else than all the other masses are doing on the streets. And it's always like, it depends on the context, where you are, in the cultural contexts, and I was interested in to be there. Also the backpacks. I mean, you're outside, you do something. I mean, the backpacks is a work where really like visitors can take it from the exhibition. It's an installation. You can take one backpack. There are a lot of stuff on it. So, and each of the backpack has other function. One is a speaker's backpack, so you have everything for a speech on the street with you. So you have a little pedestal, you can stand on it, you have a tripod with a microphone, you have speakers by batteries, you have a bottle of water and the glass, you have something to note something, and you can begin your speech. But it's public space, it's not protected. So also even there we were like attacked. And I mean, when I say we were, usually I made this platform inside of an institution, then people are deciding to take it, and I'm not recording them. That's very important, because I don't want to disturb the way how they want to use it. But from time to time we have volunteers to make video records, and by chance then there was in Belgrade a situation where they really attacked us because we were doing something which was not in their minds, and so on. So I was interested in to go into real life and to see what happened if you make their injections with art, with performances, yeah, this was like I worked in the early years very much with that.
Can we maybe switch to some images? When you say they were not like necessarily political actions, like the somersaulting in the street, where you were like stopped by the police and were taken as if it is. We can click here.
Oh, okay.
Yes. But there are also cases where you take where you either go out on the street yourself again, or take out from the street and insert things in the institution, like the political actions. And with that, I would like to refer to Berlin Say's work. You collected like different slogans that are like written by various people out on the streets as like either political slogans or any other graffiti, like message, sentences, and you gathered them as in one piece, like a graffiti piece.
I mean, I can show you.
Yes.
I mean, yes, what I've done actually, and I call them portraits of cities. I mean,
yes.
City portraits. It's more about also the backpacks. It's more about what I'm interested in, like the moment of action, actually. Where is the point where you're not just sitting and looking to the television? Where is the point that you really go out to the streets? And it's interesting. I mean, like if you see all these graffitis all over the world on the facades, they're all kind of illegal acts. There's always a story behind of it. There's always somebody who really looked to the left and to the right and made then the decision to take out the spray can and spray something on it. So it's also a kind of a canvas, actually, the platform, the facades of a city, for the voice of the people who don't have maybe a platform to say it, and maybe also who wants to make it not visible, let's say, that they are doing it. And what I'm doing is like, this is like in Berlin. I showed that at the Hamburger Bahnhof in Berlin, where I collected over 3 months all over Berlin by walking through the city, these graffitis. And then actually, it's a kind of a ready-made because I'm resprayed them on one wall. So the whole graffitis, what you have usually in the city, I collect them and concentrate it on one wall. So
and it's your handwriting, it's the same.
Yeah, it's the content. I mean, it's about the content. What are they writing? It's not about like that they're beautiful written or something. It's because why are they doing it? So actually you see everything, or you have everything on the facades of a city which bothers our society. So there are sexistic things, very violent sentences, there are politics inside, there is religion inside, there are love and romantic things in it. So everything actually, you can see that in facades. And I'm doing that concentrated on one wall as like also as a performative act, because also it's recorded in a video. And at the end there is a wall painting with all the content still, but they're kind of deleting themselves because of the masses, yes. But they're still there. So that's the story about that.
And you're always using the red for every city, right? You're not like attaining different colors to different cities. Yeah,
I mean, again, this is really a work which I'm doing. It's an ongoing work. I started with that, I think, 2007, and till then, I've done it in many cities, and it has always also something to do with zeitgeist. So also it's connected with the year always. When it says Berlin says. 2013, because what is today also on the street, on the facades in Turkey, for example, in Istanbul, it will be different in 10 years, because then there are other issues which are, like the people are bothering, or they wanted to express outside. And so also graffitis are getting deleted all of the time, that we see it also here very obvious, and then there will come another graffiti on it, and they're getting deleted again. So the content is changing all the time, but the actions are not changing. So it's interesting for me that so many people are really using that facades for to express their thoughts, their ideas, their dreams, their positions, their ideologies.
like you said that you did it yourself, of course, like the entire wall, and you also have it as a video. And in many of your works, like the similar, as also in the work that we've like started with, In My Pants, you have yourself as a central role in the work. Not in all of your works, but there are like there are some works that are basically depending on your own performance, and the way that you're taking different materials as a challenge or like different production techniques, I see that you're also challenging your own self, either as like how to say, like as this like a social entity, like you're peeing in your pants in front of everyone. Maybe in that room there was just a camera, but like now we're seeing it all together. Or another work is breaking records, where you're physically challenging yourself to break records of like almost like absurd things, like holding 6 acts in one hand at one time, or like having the hula hoop, like, or like the making the loudest scream. And so, how do you position your own self within all these like social conditions and like this also the political critique?
I mean, at the beginnings, I mean, I didn't have the feeling that's important that I'm doing the performance. I've done the performance, but mostly because there was nobody else who's doing it. Because like to do these rollings, I mean, it looks very playful, but actually it hurts a lot. And I mean, I was doing it sometimes like over 100 meters because you had to, or even more. And it's a very physical act. You can't walk 3 days after that, because I'm also not such a trained guy who's doing it all the time. You know, and it was just like also economic thing. I mean, I would love to pay somebody at that time who is doing it for me, and I'm making the recording, but there was nobody, so I've done it. Of course, afterwards, it was important that I've done it at that time, but it was not so, yeah, you know, like on the point that it's so important that I am. And there are then works like the peeing in my pants. I mean, In My Pants work, where I specifically had to do it, because my works are also. There's also never the point that. I mean, there's a lot of self-doubt, self-criticism in it. I mean,
you're also reflecting your own vulnerability, and like you're making it very obvious in everyone's eyes, you know.
Yeah, I mean, and in that time I had that feeling, and therefore In My Pants, it's a very important work for of me, because it was also the time where I had that feeling I have to show actually this kind of image to the outside, this kind of losing also of the control. I mean, like to pee in your pants, it has so many meanings. It's one that you learn as a child. You don't have to do that. You can't do that. So you learn that, to control your body, and there is something happening where you give it totally up, and you are also not ashamed to do it. Normally, it has a lot to do with shame, but also when are you peeing into your pants? There's mostly times when you're sick and losing the control of your body, and you can't hold it anymore. When you die, then the whole body is taking out everything. And also if you are really, really afraid of something, and you're losing for a short time the control. And here I really wanted to confront actually me as an artist, because there's also so much, you know, that they load so much on artists. Like show us the world or whatever. I want to see, you know, learn something or whatever, you know. And it's totally true, of course, also, because we have the luxury as artists to work with the topics we're interested in, we think, and also in a very freedom way.
It's a privileged position.
It's a privilege. I mean, it has nothing to do only with money, but it's a privilege, and mostly very, very present also in rich countries, where where so many academies, let's say, are existing in Germany, and everybody knows that 98% will never make money with that. Yeah, but they're still existing. They cost so much money in the world, but only that you have give the possibility to get out of, let's say, the normal system. It's another system then again, the art system, but that somebody just do things which are alternatives to the ways of seeing what we have with our medias, what we have every day. So, at that time, I was in my pants. I had a residency. It's the most, let's say, well-paid, most prestigious residency in Germany, which is existing, very old.
Is it Bethanien?
No, it's a Villa Massimo in Rome. So they send also since over years. They call it also like that, which is kind of crazy, the elite artist to, it's on their website. And all the artists have problems with that in a way, not all of them, but some of them. And I felt really uncomfortable. So you were in a kind of a bulb, you're totally disconnected, even it was in the city, it was like a,
isolated.
Like a golden cage with I mean, with barbed wire and, like special keys and cameras all over, and inside it was like the most, beautiful thing you can imagine, with a huge park inside and studio and whatever, and then you get paid a lot of money. And I felt so uncomfortable there because it has so less to do with my normal life as an artist. So therefore, it was like to free myself with that video at that time. And it was very important that I've done it at the end of the residency.
Can I show a few images from
from what?
The Breaking the Records? This is an earlier work than In My Pants, right?
Yes, that's a work what I've done in my studio in Berlin. So these are performances, or let's say tries, not even performances, I'm just like in action, where I, without trained myself before and prepared myself before, tried to break records which are existing. They're mostly also totally nonsense. I mean, there a lot of records are existing, like the most push-ups you can do in one line, or the most eggs in your hand, and the fastest hula hoop, the loudest scream, the longest holding the breath. And they're all funny in a way. But what was interesting is that let's say that was the installation at Kunsthalle Mannheim. They were quite huge, 4 meter to 2 meter each video projection. But what's interesting is that that it totally get into, and this was also my intention, into like they worked as an opponent to the visitors, or they took the parts as an opponent, because they came into the exhibition space and then they saw that awkward guy who can't do anything really proper. And even I really tried to make it. I mean, like I really physically, I went to the edge what I was
capable of.
Yeah, capable of. I was like getting unconscious very close. Yeah, when I was doing the holding the breath, I was like, I cried when putting the straws in my mouth, because it was physically very difficult also. But in a way it was funny, but then they saw also this kind of tension there, what the guy is really doing on. But immediately they became also like, they thought like, oh, I can do it better than him, you know? And then you figured out, there's somebody who's holding the breath secretly, you know, and just to look if he can make it or she can make it longer than me, and so on. And even there were like workshops with a lot of people who were like making them sports there and doing it. But the thing is there, what is it actually, this kind of record? What does it mean to be the best in something? And why is it existing? And it's really mirroring actually how our society is working. And there I was interested in. So you have to be young, good looking, sporty, you know, like in a way you have to always function and you never have to fail. And this is like the, how do you say, the top of that, that at least that you are somebody who are aiming to break that, I mean, the record holders, once in your life, that you're the best of something. And that really mirrors a lot, I think. And I mean, there is only one story, for example, with the push-ups, that, I mean, I read the story about, I think it was an English guy, I forgot it, but he broke the record of push-ups in one line, which was around 3,000 something. And it's an amazing thing. I mean, at that time, I was able to do 40. And he, I mean, and he was doing, I mean, that
3,000.
That meant, what is interesting, the story, he was explaining it, actually, that he was so fixed from the idea, because he just started to make push-ups, then he realized, oh, I'm really good in that, and I'm practicing 1 week, I made really good efforts, and then he saw that, and then he's like, oh, I want to be the best. And then he stopped to study. Yeah, he canceled his studying. He made a special plan of training, only focused on push-ups, over 8 hours every day. This he made around 2 years. Yeah? Nothing else, till he broke that record. The record is at the moment more than 7,000. So that means that after him, so many people broke it. That means also that everywhere in the world, maybe there are like around 200 people maybe who are just doing that, like stopping all the social contacts, stopping the work maybe, and just focusing on it. And I mean, that's only just an example. For example, what does it mean actually to do that? And for me as an artist, it was interesting to make a work where somehow you deal with that topic, but also that you show again you're failing all over. Like as you fail also as an artist, often as you fail as a person, as a man, as a husband, as a father, as a lover, as a gallerist, as a curator. So also to display and make that also as a work.
Yes, I mean, you're showing the failure, but also, like you explained, it is how you're like pointing out to everyone's, like a lot of people's obsession with like being more successful or better, more elite, you know, wealthier.
The bigger exhibition, the bigger catalog, the best sale. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And actually with that physical and also the material challenge, I would like to come to the works in the next room of the exhibition, the chandeliers. So maybe you can, actually let me explain you briefly that for the works in the next room, Nasan chose these like beautiful chandeliers in this like old style traditional as his raw material. And then he shaped them almost as a sculptor doing a new sculpture, and it was a new material for him. It was a test. We didn't know about the results. So could you please explain the process and then also how and I mean why you chose chandelier for your show in Istanbul at this point?
I mean, the whole exhibition they're all new works.
Yes.
And it was also for me important that I wanted to show here not a kind of, I mean, older works from somewhere, so they're very specific. This is a specific exhibition for me in a very specific time also in Istanbul. For me it was important as I mean not as an artist, but for me as Nasan, who are involved in the art community also since 2001. I mean, that means also that before, like say, or the very, very beginning of the contemporary art boom, then through the really, really boom, and then also
decline.
The decline and the crash of it, and then now like this kind of try to survive somehow and to resist the situations, that I wanted to do the show really here, and therefore I was looking for materials also which also reflect maybe my feeling about the situation, and also which are opening maybe different kind of questions. So the chandeliers are, as you said, I mean, they're like beautiful and expensive and very well done. They're lamps, but they're not only lamps. They make light, yeah, but they have also a specific purpose. Why you buy a chandelier? Why this kind of chandeliers? So if we see always places of, let's say, representation of power, you see this kind of chandeliers. It doesn't matter if it's in Turkey or even in Germany. I mean, just at the moment there is like Merkel and trying to make a, you know, like with the other parties in new government, and then there are like paparazzi photos inside of the room where they like secretly try to figure out something, and then you see exactly that kind of chandeliers. Then you see it in places from very rich people who really also make a statement with that. You know, it's a symbol of power, of wealth, of security maybe also, what they think to have. And that was the point where I was interested in, because it's not about to destroy this kind of chandeliers, which are also, I mean, it was difficult also for me to make the decision, because there also, I mean, there's so much work on it that people spent. I mean, there's so much handcraft. They designed it very well. There's thousands of hours, you know, like people really try to make this object proper, like it should work. And then there is me who's like fighting with it. And it was a kind of a fight, actually. I was there, the chandelier was there, and then it began like to happen that there are a lot of splinters all over, and I tried to harm them, to injure them, to make them a new form, which opens, as I said, other questions now. It's still a chandelier, it's still beautiful, it's still
functions properly.
It functions as a lamp, it's still hangable, but now it's also something else. It's injured, it's dangerous. The closer you are, the easier you can cut yourself. It's even difficult to transport it now or to create it for a gallery. I mean, it's something which is like trying to resist like this normal chandelier thing. And I think this is something which has to do also something with like, what does it mean actually, this kind of symbolism? What does it mean, wealth? What does it mean, power? And what does it mean to use also this in their function? So for me it was very interesting to use it, as you said, as my raw material, that I decided not to use other, let's say, stone or marble or a wood block. No, my raw material was this symbolism. Yeah, now you have this installation over there, which has, yeah, very sacral moment also. It's very interesting how the people also react to it, because they're really silent often to it. I didn't expect it so much. But also it is something which is not visible in the first glance. And also, what is it actually, art? Like, you know, like to do that. It's also a question, can art do this, you know? Can it just like break things? And it's also very interesting from the economic way also, like what can art do? In one way it can open questions, in the other way, hey, these chandeliers are now more expensive than before. Exactly. Yeah, what does it mean actually? And I mean, these are so many questions and levels inside of that work which can be discussed.
And what it was important for you that they would still function.
Yes.
Yes.
Because it's not a broken one.
Yes.
That was important. It's not that it looks like, oh, it fall down. No, it didn't fall down. It was just in confrontation with me.
It's also confrontation with the fact that such, like the values that we were talking about, or like the norms, are instable and like could be, like could easily get better or could be lost.
Yeah, it was about splinters.
Yes.
It was about splinters who could go in your skin or could go in your eyes.
Yes.
And then that's what actually also got produced with this kind of deforming. And when we talk now about splinters and the chandeliers, this is, the title of the exhibition is Splinter in Your Eye. And
in my eye.
In my eye, and in our eyes. And that means something. That means also, in a way, it comes from the phrase of Adorno, He was in exile, he was like fleeing from Germany. He was totally, depressed and over with humanity somehow, because he said like it's so crucial what's going on. And then he wrote like this really like without any, let's say, positive and hope things, this essays and texts. And one quote of it is like, the splinter in our eyes is the best magnifying glass. And I changed it a little bit and made it like the splinter in my eye, which also something where it begins that you can't see anymore. It needs only a really, really tiny thing, and it's just in your eye, and you stop to see proper anymore. And when you can't see anymore, you're getting aware really of seeing. And that's something has so much to do with the chandeliers. It's not about the symbolism. It's not about the security you think you have with, different things. It could be power, it could be money, it could be other things also. It's more about that you always have to aware that seeing is very, very important.
Actually, also Adorno is referring to that as like, like the different ways to think about the flows, like the philosophy that are like the Western philosophy is based on, and how to see the world like differently in a new way. So it's like when he means that it's the best magnifying glass, it's again the idea of like the thinking about the seeing and like thinking anew about the ways that we're living in. And yes, we're speaking of today, and he wrote it in the 1940s, like as a critique of the Western society and how it won't be the same after the World War II with after the Holocaust, and everyone was like killed or massacred or displaced.
And he didn't see also at that time any vision for the future, any positive vision in the future, which is for philosophy actually very, very often like that they make a kind of like a vision also like how it could. And he said like just like, okay, humanity is over somehow, and he was like in a mood. But that's not about, it's here also much about like to sharp yourself also as like, like you can't, also as an artist, I try not to just be, like, it's the same like, these neons are working. Cool, the people like it, they're shiny, and they sell it, everything is fine. I'm going to make it now the next 3-4 years in variations. And I really want, and that was from the beginning on, I don't want to get into this trap. As an artist, but also as a human, you have to be aware of these traps which are there. And I think this is also something I try not to get in trap, and that's my way not to do it. But of course, everybody is reading different things, and also from the context. To show it now here will be totally different than when I'm going to show it in Berlin, maybe, because they're not so aware about how fragile actually our system is, where we think we have a kind of a security of, let's say, democracy or freedom or whatever. I mean, it's also everything kind of questionable, but sometimes we feel really cozy with that.
Yes, especially in Europe, but where, like you said, like all these ideas are, especially recently, being constantly questioned with recent political changes. We have the other part, I would like to switch to the other part of the exhibition. And we were speaking about like deforming or like shaping and like giving new shapes, forms to existing objects or images. And one of the things that you're often using is language, and you're tweaking the language when you're making this social political critique, and especially of these value systems. Well, here on this wall you see like different words, like Turkish words that Nasan chose for this exhibition, and they're written in neon size, but they're all misspelled. So maybe we can start with why you choose these words, and then I would also like to refer to some of your other works that you use language. But maybe before that, sorry, like I kind of like, I'm moving back and forth. In between the chandeliers and the neon signs, I would like to speak about your sound piece that you did for the recent documenta, where actually not like visibly seen, but audibly you deformed the language, a speech. And it was, you deformed it like a significant power sign. So I see it as a connection between like this, how you deform, like they change the chandeliers, and how you're changing the vocabulary, the words. Can we talk about that work?
Yes.
And maybe listen to a part of it.
Yeah, yeah, maybe we can listen to it.
Yes, maybe we first listen. Because I think this would actually give a better reference for the audience about the neon works.
I mean, that's 42 minutes.
So
I hope we have time. No, I'm just like a very, I think, a short.
Yes, maybe we can cut it.
Okay, 43 minutes with that. I mean, yeah, it's interesting, that combination. I made one exhibition before that. Yeah, I had a show at the Villa Torlonia in where is it, in Rome, in a Museo di Villa Torlonia, and there I put also a sound installation and a performance at the beginning with musicians, actually. Maybe to put this in front, because since a longer time I'm working with the rhetoric also of political speeches, and the way how they're presented, also the way how they broadcast it, actually, how they edit it, but also the way how the politicians speak to the masses to convince them about their ideologies and all that stuff. So I collect a lot of collected a lot of speeches and made research about that. And in Villa Torlonia, I made in the Villa Torlonia, you have to know, is the old the building actually where Mussolini lived with his family. And now it's a museum, but not a contemporary art museum. It's a museum as the living house of Mussolini. And they try to make it kind of a critical, historical overview there, the display. But at the end, I mean, it's also, you know, like a lot of fascists are coming there, and like they like it, and the museum heads, they really, you know, like suffer a little bit with that. So what I've done actually is a work where I transformed actually the political speeches, the rhetoric, over a technical tool, which was software actually, which analyzes sound, also, I mean, also what I speak, for example, and transform it into really, I mean, into notes, I mean, into quotes, I mean, into really playable tunes, and so everything what somebody says can be played also. And so it was interesting for me then to take classical music inside of that space where was the private place of Mussolini, where he also created the speeches, more or less, or the ideas actually behind of the speeches there in this between these walls. And so that was the first piece I made as a sound installation. So for the opening, there were like violins, cellos, I mean different musicians from Rome who were then playing all over the whole house, partly his most important speeches from the 40s to the masses. And it sounds really weird. I mean, it sounds like a little bit, I mean, like it sounds sometimes really nice, and then it was cracked again, and it didn't work as a sound piece, let's say, which has a harmony. So actually it was not a music which was composed by a composer, it was kind of music which came out of a political speech, which were also political speeches which were really, really dangerous, let's say, and steered into really bad things. And I made it as a sound piece because I didn't want to move anything or put something into a museum there, because it was already an installation by itself. There was his bed, the mirror, I mean, like everything of his private house was there. And then from time to time it was, I mean, there was that, it was waved by this sound all over. So the next piece then were like the documenta piece. When they invited me to take part and to produce the work, commission the work
for the radio program.
For the radio program, which was very interesting because they considered radio as a platform like beside cinema, exhibition, and the open. It
was one of the sites of the documenta, actually.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's really like, I mean, sound plays still such a big role. Radio it plays a bigger role in the world than internet, and we don't believe it because we are like surrounded only with internet. But the most population in the world, and these are like places where they don't have internet, in parts of Africa, India, I mean like rural parts, South America, and they really all listen to radio, and it has such an impact. And I also like remember my childhood when my father and all the men in Germany who were like guest workers at that time, we all had to switch off the television and have to be silent, because at 9 o'clock there was like this little radio, and that was the only news they were able to hear from Turkey. And it was the 80s. I mean, like a difficult time also at that time.
We could only hear that, believe me, here, like that wasn't very different in 80s.
Well, I mean, I'm telling that because it always also like work differently in different contexts. So I was like explaining that because on that speech I made then for the radio program, for the sound program. Actually, it was not only for the radio; it is a sound piece, and I'm going to show that also next time in a broader installation way in a museum in Finland. But what I've done here is not to use actually specific language of the politicians. You have here 3 politicians which play a big role in the world at the moment. It's Trump, Putin, and Merkel. In 3, could be more, but I choose these ones now for that piece. And these 3 speeches were really important speeches. One was the inauguration speech of Trump. The other one was the annexation. Annexation? Annexation mit den Englischen. Krimi almak. To take the Crim, you know, like in Ukraine.
Ah, okay.
Annexation, I think it's in English. I'm not so sure. The speech after that, and Merkel's speech, which was really, really controversial in Germany, with "we're going to make it," or what is "wir machen das," or "wir schaffen das." So we're going to make it with the refugees, actually, yes. That we say we are opening the borders and somehow we're going to make it. We will make it. And what I've done here is like to take the whole language out. So I edit, it's the full speeches with all the applause and even the music at the beginning, or sometimes there is something and then the applause. So, but I took out only the language, and what is still there is the body language of the, the body voices of the politicians. So it's like to take the breath to.
Or the swallows.
I mean, like all these things which you usually hear only in moments of very intimate moments with people, where you're very close to it. And with politicians, usually in speeches, you're totally focused on what they're saying, and also it's an invisible sound what you hear here. What makes it, but also very human. I mean, there you see also that this kind of vulnerability inside of these people. I mean, they breathe, they have to smack, they have to, to drink a glass of water and make some voices out of it. And it was for me interesting to show then as a sound piece in that documentary radio, a piece where I took out the things which are usually broadcast over the radio to convince people about their ideologies or their ideas.
So coming from that to this neon signs?
And the neon signs here is like, I mean, these are all words, they're now in Turkish, so only Turkish people will read it and understand it, but you can of course look in the dictionary. And they are the same words which we hear also very often in Germany, or we hear it in America. They are very familiar to us. They are words which are used again and again and again in political speeches, and mostly in very polemic and let's say right political. I mean, right-wing, let's say, political speeches very often. And there are like words which are repeated again and again and emphasized in a specific way to really touch the people and to feel somehow, to identify the people with them.
But they almost lose their meaning.
Yeah,
and
here are these words, but they're all, you think, I mean, written wrong. Yeah, they're grammatically wrong. They're 2 Z's, for example. It's not Azim, it's Azim, with 2 Z, or those, like they have like this kind of little mistakes. You see it in the second view, but at the end you don't know also, is it now written wrong, or is it just the way how it's used actually in the pronunciation written. So it's not really written wrong, maybe. So it's a playful game here or way how I'm presenting these specific words, and it's also about like what is language in context of political influences. I mean, like, I mean that it's much more than just a communication tool. It's also a weapon. You know, you can really begin something with one word, if you like, that's the work here over here.
Well, I was checking the time, and actually there are other works that I would like to refer to. I think we've been speaking for almost an hour. Maybe we can quickly go through your show at your recent the workshop.
Yeah.
Because you also, like recently, you're doing more and more like workshops in your exhibitions, or like your.
It was the first time.
Yeah, but like the idea of like producing together, because I remember that we also discussed different works or projects, and then you also told me that that you enjoyed spending time with younger people, students. So maybe we're aging. I don't know. Can you tell me about this project?
No, that I
the tweak of language. Actually, I would like to.
I mean,
keep talking about.
That's. I mean, that's an interesting. I mean, like switch to from that to that exhibition actually, because here it's again everything is about language and the way how it comes to us. And what I've done here is actually to. I mean, the exhibition by itself. The work by itself, it was the situation of a workshop. So my idea was for that exhibition to have the whole circle actually also from art production inside of one exhibition. So it's from the beginning of like the idea what to do, what to write actually, and to produce as an artwork. Then to build up also, I mean to build up the tools. Oh, there is no. No. I mean, you can see it here.
Yes, they're like
over
wood
there.
cuts.
So we have like and the first desk, it's over here. I'm thinking about it's my office desk where I'm like which kind of slogans I'm going to put on the wood blocks. Then we're carving it out. So we're actually producing the tools for printing, and then we're really printing it, and then there is also a display there. I mean, we're hanging it onto the wall. It's not visible now here. And then it's also sold, so it's getting out from the exhibition space to somewhere else. And what I've done here is actually to combine two things which are actually totally contrary at the first glance. It's one is like these slogans which are, let's say, highly questionable also. Like here we have, for example, one of them is power is fragile, or we have empathy is naive. And these are mostly, again, very close to this one, statements which are took from the social media. I mean, a medium which is, I mean, very easy to manipulate also, which we all, I mean, most of the people here use it already, and which is also kind of a revolution like the woodcuts, I think, was at that time. So at that time, to print with woodcuts, it is the oldest technique of reproduction, actually, what I'm using here, but in combination with phrases and I mean sentences which are get from social media, where usually you can spread them in seconds to millions of people. So what I'm doing here actually is prolonging the process of perception. So till I really have one reproduction, It took over 1.5 days actually to make it, and what you usually do in a second. And that means also to prolong time means also time to have to reflect over things. And I wanted to create there a situation which is also like a slow motion, like to come there and I mean, it's also demanding work because you don't see immediately something. But it's something where you see people all over the time working, very focused, very slowly producing these artworks. And a lot of things happened then during that time. Yeah, I don't know. You can ask questions. Or
well,
okay. Another thing is important for that work is we made these wood blocks, and the wood blocks are not, I mean, just a tool for to make prints. They are artworks by itself, but also their work. I mean, they're you can see it here, for example, also in an exhibition. They are existing smaller and bigger size, if you possess one of them as a collector, as a museum or whatever, you have the right actually to use that as a tool, as a printing tool. So you're allowed over the certification that you can reproduce actually prints out of it in an unlimited way. So you can really use it. But if you use it or not, it's up to you. So I mean, the first work which I've done was in, I mean, which came into a collection, was a collection in Naples, in Italy, and I mean, and they're still, they really use it. Every month there is a children workshop, and I don't know how many prints they already made, and how often, you know, the letter broke, and they just glue it, and they had to, you know, like sanded it again and make it new. So it looked already like 1,000 times work. It's not so proper like at the wall already. So it's also about like was about to create a work which is at the same time a picture with a statement, but also at the same time a tool for reproduction and for using. And yeah.
What happened to the prints you made during the show?
During the show, we agreed that because we wanted to make prints, but we didn't want to make like huge prints. So we made an edition of 10 of the prints, and they got sold, or they're in storage now. But the plates are existing still, and so you can still work on that. And a lot of these plates got sold, or I mean, like somebody bought it, and now they're using it. Maybe I don't know. I don't have the control over it. It's a tool. So they use it, or it's hanging somewhere, or it's in the storage.
Yeah, like the chandeliers. We don't know if they'll be hung in someone's house and function, or be in a storage, like an art storage.
Yeah, I mean, here again, it's also a situation where I try to go over borders also, you know, like not to have like this kind of limited thing of showing something. It's actually what I'm doing in the studio. Maybe I made it as a stage over there, and then also like everything is open now. Yeah, there is no miracle anymore. There is no wow, beautiful, or how he made that, or it comes from somewhere. It's just like, put it bluntly, it's like how it is, and that's it, and that's a production way. But it was interesting in the point that it was also a commercial gallery, that also the system behind of it was visible. I mean, like, one is the production of the artist, then also the selling system was inside of it, and that's part of the art business also. And sometimes I work with that when I think it's worth to do that.
Nasan, my last question is kind of an observation, and I would like you to kind of respond to that, if you like. So we've seen your works from like different periods, and then how you switch from like one, you know, like type of practice to the another, and also like starting with backpacks. My second chance to work with you was in 2015, 8 years after the biennial, Istanbul Biennial. Again with Ho-Han Ru, when I co-created the Istanbul Passion, Joy, Fury show at Maxi. And there we showed your video installation, preparation number 1, where there's a protester getting ready. It's very laborious.
You don't know.
We don't know.
Yeah.
All like the chains, sprays, and then we also saw your Blaine Southern show where you inserted the workshop and this exhibition. So I kind of think that you used to be more like outside taking actions, or like kind of making people take action, whereas in recent years you're doing like almost more symbolic, subtle gestures, and you pull yourself more inside. Are you becoming less of a naughty boy? That's my question.
Naughty boy?
You used to be like this out on the street, and now you're more like...
Yes. No, I mean like it's, you know, like
quiet,
it's also always about the projection. There is always, you know, like the people expect something from you. Hey, you painted with red, why you're changing to green? It has to have a reason. Yes, it has a reason, yeah, because you're changing also as an artist, and you question what you're doing, and it will come again differently. I'm not taking myself, and that's very important for my artistic work, into some cases. I don't want to have that. So when I'm interested in now, like let's say painting, because it has, I mean, like it's important for the work to do that, I would do that. I'm not, I mean, like, as I said also before, it is not important that I'm doing the stuff all the time. Sometimes, yes. When we talk about First Shot, for example, where, I mean, like there I invited people in a shooting place to shoot the first time with a real gun, actually. And it's a very slow, it's a slow motion work where the people with all their with all their, I mean, tension and insecurity to hold the real weapon, I mean, make their first shot and also realize then what is, and with all their emotions. I mean, there also, I mean, I mean, I could also put myself, but it's not about that, to put yourself into that situation. It's more about like, what do you want to have, and that, and sometimes you have to take you out, and sometimes you have to take you in when you have the feeling. And at the moment, I mean, like, I don't know, I was taking me totally in that. I mean, like, if you saw the, I mean, for me, it's important that I don't have a factory, for example, an art factory where 12, 20, 30 artists are working for mine, and I'm now producing like all of them, and I'm just saying, okay, bend this, make this, and I'm controlling, and then it's finished. I have to fight with that. I have to feel that, and I have to sweat, and I have to hurt myself somehow. And it doesn't have to be so many of them, but at that moment, it was the right thing to do. So that's the way I'm working. I can't say what's tomorrow. That's impossible. And I mean, in the past, I have also to say there are a lot of very, very sensible photography works I've done, and I was not putting me totally in it. If you think about like the photography with my mother, for example, and other series of photographies I've done, I worked a lot with photography at that time.
It wasn't actually just, my question was not necessarily about having yourself actually in it, but being almost like more out in the loud almost in the public space, as opposed to
loud?
Yeah, I mean, but loud, it's not just like vocal loud, but like with the work itself being out, as opposed to having like more subtle, but more maybe, I don't know, further planned gestures in your critique. That was my reflection of actually about the change in your practice.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also not so young anymore.
I don't.
Yeah, I mean, if I now reflect, I mean, I'm doing this since 20 years. Yeah, I mean, that's a long time, actually. So I'm 43 now, and it's not that I'm old, but I mean, it's not that I'm a young emerging artist
So
anymore.
you don't want to somersault anymore?
I don't do somersaulting anymore because this work is over. You know, like I don't feel the need to do it. If I would feel the need, I would do it. I mean, I don't have a problem with that. As long as I can do it, and as long as I think it's important that I'm doing it, I will do it, of course. I mean, that's the fun part also of it. I mean, to show you my scarves from the actions and all that stuff.
Well, I think we're good. If you like to show this
I mean,
briefly.
maybe I show as the last work the preparation work, which we showed also in Maxi. It's called Preparation Number 1. Called Preparation Number 1 because I planned to do the number 2 and the number 3, but it never happened. But the name stayed, and maybe in 10 years I'm going to start to make the second and the third one. It's about a fictive activist, and I mean, the visual aesthetic comes also from a Hollywood aesthetic. That was my idea, where let's say the one person hero is preparing himself for this huge action and the huge fight for outside. But here you see an excessive preparation all over and all over. It's a 6-channel installation normally, very loud, very aggressive. It plays a little bit with this kind of body, also kind of...
And also production.
I mean, it's attractive also somehow to see, but at the end, it's a preparation where you don't know for what. It's an excessive preparation for maybe nothing, for maybe something. And here I'm showing, just like how I'm showing in lectures, it begins with 1 channel that we can focus on it, and at the end you see the 6-channel video installation. Thank you.
Thank you. And if you have any questions, please feel free. Otherwise, I think we've covered quite a lot of things.
Are there any questions? Or
yeah, of course. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for coming. Yeah.